Good evening. I want to thank Miss Cud, Miss Ryan, and Miss Stavely Schwab for their fine service to their nation today and this evening. Whether you know it or not, you've actually been incredibly helpful, and you may well have assisted with addressing a very important diplomatic matter. So I want to acknowledge you right off the hand, uh, right up front. You are definitely qualified in terms of what needed to be done. It would have been better suited for everybody if there had been another way to acknowledge you. But unfortunately, because of the way the economics of this situation have commenced and what has been allowed to transpire, the fact that you were available as an option because of what you did in service to your country on January 6th, and like it or not, the fact that you ended up getting arrested and charged has actually been instrumental in assuring that what was needed at the time frame actually ended up getting accomplished. And you might well have actually provided a means by which to save the life of a head of state. So I want to thank you very much for your fine service to this country. And if you need to, please have your attorneys contact me directly to provide details and any sort of testimonial evidence or anything else you might need. But I want to address another matter that is concurrent to this, and I'm not sure if I need to confess or how this might otherwise be available for acknowledgement or addressing. In 2016, there was a time frame during which I was homeless and in need of assistance from a domestic violence shelter. I was in Chicago, Illinois at the time. In that time frame, events had occurred, and I was referred to an agency down the street that was a nonprofit organization, presumably assisting people with acquiring affordable housing. At that time, there was a very, very significant situation happening with the state of Illinois budget. There had been, at that time, going on the second year, where the governor of Illinois refused to sign the state budget. And so this was part of what was impacting events connected to people that relied on the state to budget for them to provide services. I had already filed some reports. I was in the course of some investigations while I was trying to deal with acquiring resources. But I mentioned this because during that time, I was given an opportunity. See, I was provided with an option myself. The option was if I wanted to assist or I wanted to support their efforts, which at that point involved a slate of proposed legislation concerning tax reform. There were three major tax proposals that they had put before the state of Illinois. And while I read through the tax proposals and personally had my own understanding of their implications and their potential for success, they had stated that by that time there had been a vote that was coming forward in the legislature, and they were having problems because they had gotten a number of opposition candidates to support, a number of Republicans to support the tax bill initially. But right before the vote was to be confirmed, the Republicans that had supported it, that would have secured its passage, ended up withdrawing their support. So they weren't able to follow through. Their proposal at that time was a protest. There was a campaign fundraiser for the Republican candidates. My understanding is it was connected to federal election processes, not just the state, but this was a fundraiser that was meant to provide funds for the Republican Party. And they were going to protest. And among the things they were going to do was provide a bail fund for people that got arrested for criminal trespassing. Understanding was there was a risk that one could be arrested for criminal trespassing if they engaged in the planned protest. Now, at the time, I did not have any housing of my own and did not consider that to be an adequate consideration of risk. But my understanding was that there were also other implications. You see, in the state of Illinois, a criminal trespass has very specific implications, not just related to the metrics associated with the criminal code, but also the fact that there's a very specific paradigm in Illinois concerning the intersection of facilities that might be considered high risk and the coding and implications of getting a criminal trespass for being on site at one of those places without having the appropriate permissions and or in some sort of breach of safety. And this was not disclosed to me at the time, but neither was the fact that concurrent to that time frame in the state of Illinois, there was a bill pending, and that was in the course of being passed, saying that anybody who was a journalist who had acquired a arrest for a criminal trespass would then be banned from being able to participate in formal political proceedings, including city hall meetings, or including being able to participate in proceedings or provide be provided with access to official proceedings as a journalist to state functions. I was not in Arizona. I was in Illinois. But these laws were pending the same time that the option, I guess you could say, to participate in that fundraiser was brought to my attention. And one of the things that I understand is that for some groups of people, participating in a political protest that risks arrest is actually a form of potential political capital investment. Now, there are paradigms and political paradigms where people discuss this, and they discuss the risk associated with getting arrested. And then, in some cases, there's a consideration of, well, who is going to provide support? Who's going to provide legal support? But most importantly, who's going to pay for the bail bond? And in the situation we're dealing with right now, I want to apologize if me refusing to put myself at risk of getting arrested for a 420 ended up somehow accruing in somebody's election campaign hedging strategy, and then they tried to CCP it through their most favorite auditor that happens to have a contract to audit the Pentagon onto you. But at the same time, if they did, then it left open the option that those three people I just mentioned were able to step up into today. It also, however, brings up a very important contextualization that needs to be addressed. My question is, how many of the National Guardsmen that were compelled to sleep in a parking garage as a response to the events of January 6th of 2021 were from the state of Virginia? I mention this because one of the things that has been happening very significantly in the time frame around which these investigations I've been involved with that are part of what would have already been presented in a criminal trial or perhaps some form of congressional proceeding concerning this pattern of racketeering activity that also involves a violation of constitutional process around the federal budget process, has to do with codes and code flipping, including code flipping on bombs. And it just so happens that the trespassing code for the state of Virginia has within it the precise kinds of metrics that correlate with other aspects of this scheme, specifically 18.2106. Was an 18.2-106 pulled in connection with those purportedly hundreds, if not thousands, of National Guards people that were compelled to sleep in that parking garage in Washington, D.C.? My understanding is one of the first responses concerning an offer of assistance by the National Guard was provided by the state of Virginia, along with a number of state troopers. Depending upon what kind of parking garage it is, those state troopers might come up in a relevant capacity as well. I bring this up because it would be very, very significant if somebody was trying to leverage bonds connected to bail or other financial considerations regarding the legal assistance that needed to be provided in this specific manner as a way to try to acquire some other kind of political capital that was allegedly supposed to be about a response to a national security event involving a breach of the Capitol building for ulterior purposes. You see, those people that are in the National Guard presumably have committed no crime. And the National Guard is composed of people that are in service to their country domestically within the United States, being called to respond to an event on American soil. To make them available for some form of foreign assistance, especially if it were to be connected with the manner in which those three persons that I just acknowledged were able to be made available today based upon exercising the option that they were uniquely suited to? Well, this brings up very serious constitutional questions about what's considered to be a viable political asset when it comes to use value within the United States versus what's available as a foreign assistance in the event that it's called upon. If those hundreds or even thousands of National Guards people are likewise available in terms of execution of these options connected to the same paradigm that today was able to, shall we say, find a very novel possibility based upon having access to the possibilities and options associated with these arrests at the Capitol grounds. And please let me know as soon as possible if there is a concern about some sort of outstanding deficit associated with the fact that there may be something implicated in the understanding that I did not make that kind of political capital investment myself in 2016. And it may or may not be a justification for trying to offset the deficit I would be alleged to owe as a demonstration of my loyalty by virtue of that particular commitment. So that's other things I have done in terms of reporting to federal agencies, after reporting to local agencies, and after reporting to actual entities through the appropriate procedure internally, including entities that may or may not be in some way, shape, or form availed of the temporary assistance for needy families options within this country that may have an impact on the success of being able to provide foreign assistance as needed. Please let me know as soon as possible. If this is a conflict of interest, please also let me know as soon as possible. I look forward to hearing from the Attorney General of the state of Virginia as soon as possible. It's 11:35 p.m. on May 26, 2021.